Hi, everyone. I'm Allie Naughton, Client Strategy Manager here at Listrak, and today I'm joined by Nick Simon, Group Product Manager here at Listrak. We'll be walking through our webinar on building landing pages in Listrak using our landing page editor. Our agenda for today, we're going to start out with a few slides just to give you some things to know and remember about landing pages. We'll go through a few use cases. There's a lot of different examples of how you can use landing pages, so we'll give some prime ones, and then we will go into the app and we will go through how you build a landing page as well so that you have some hands-on use case. We'll start with planning your strategy of what you would like to build from a landing page perspective and just some things to know. So our landing pages are, you have a few different ways when you build them. You can build subscription landing pages, so you can subscribe people to your different channels, so email or SMS, and you can map multiple data points back to that person's profile. But you could also do things like informational landing pages. So you do not need to necessarily subscribe someone to a landing page in building one. You can make an informational landing page where you might lead people to that landing page in a bunch of different use cases to have like a confirmation message. Maybe they're signing up for something in email, or other use cases where you might be asking for information. We'll go into a few of those examples on the next slide, but you have those two options when you first start building landing pages of what you would like to build. Some things you should also know are just around landing pages are hosted by Listrak, so the URL will be a Listrak branded URL. You'll be able to add some key information on the end of that URL for you to identify what landing page it is, but it will have Listrak branding. You can embed those landing pages into your website via an iframe. So you have that option at the end of building landing pages, you can embed it. So if you don't want it to live just on a Listrak hosted page and you want it to live on your site somewhere, you can utilize an iframe to embed that landing page on your website. A few other notes I would probably take into consideration are when you are linking back to your website from these landing pages, it's typically recommended to add parameters for tracking. So depending on your source of truth of how you track analytics, might make it a good use case to add either GA tags if you use GA or Adobe tags, just so you know people are coming from this landing page as they won't be coming directly from an email or SMS. The last thing to note is that you'll be working in this landing page and probably making a ton of edits in draft mode, but you will not get your final URL until you actually activate the landing page. And any of the subscription points will update then as well. So just a key note, that URL will actually not change with every update that you make, but your subscription points will. So we just recommend setting the landing page live once you're pretty sure that you are complete with that landing page, especially if you have subscription points tied to it. So just a pro tip on as we start building these out, things to consider. And then you can pass along that page URL to any internal teams you need as well for auditing. Those are kind of the key things that are good to know before going in and building. We'll move along just to some use cases of how our clients today utilize landing pages. We put 6 examples here. This is by no means an exhaustive list of how you can use landing pages, but just a good sample set of how some of our clients use them today. So the first one is actually the one that Nick will be demoing and showcasing later in this webinar, but building a landing page to collect both email and SMS signups. We put Evergreen in front of here because our landing pages you can really link from anywhere. So you could link that from a spot on your website or maybe a footer of your email. Maybe you send recurring campaigns to people not subscribed to a certain channel. Those are the types of things that you could link back to this landing page for and what we'll be going over today in our training. But a few other use cases of how people utilize landing pages. People will utilize these for email sweepstakes. So if you're doing sweepstakes and collecting email addresses that way with different vendors, you could utilize a landing page there in order to subscribe people to Listrak in that capacity. You can use this for a page where you send people with email engagement. So a good example is some people might opt down over certain periods of time, like Mother's Day, Father's Day, they don't want to receive your content. you could link people back to a landing page after you've kind of opted them down by them clicking a button on that email and say, hey, we got you. We won't send you emails during this time period. It's a great way to use an informational landing page that we chatted about earlier. You also can do things like requesting information. So Nick will walk through, you can really add any of your profile fields as form fields within your landing page and then map those back to profile fields. So a good example of something like that might be asking someone for their birthday and having a page that they interact with it, and then you write that back to their profile field, and that might connect to a campaign that will trigger on their birthday. So you could really make that anything in terms of the information you can collect and store back to your customer profile. But that's a pretty common one we see here at Listrak. The last two use cases, we consistently see our clients use landing pages for people to sign up for being the first to know, whether that's about sales or products that are launching. So these are a great use case where you can have people fill in their information in order to be the first to know about different campaign launches or sale launches. You can mark information on their profile in order to target those people maybe first with your campaign blasts. And it's a good way that you could do that for both people subscribed and not subscribed. So it's a great example of writing data across your profile fields. The last example of something that might be beneficial from a landing page perspective is we have clients that will link to a landing page via a QR code. Or in store, you can kind of place that QR code around the store and tell people that they'll get a discount for signing up to your program. So that can be email and SMS or one or the other. And then you can essentially have them sign up via a landing page in store and then get their coupon real time. So a really good example of leveraging landing pages where you don't have to necessarily like build out a whole page on a site, but can have people utilize that landing page for in-store sign up. As I noted before, these are just a few examples. We'll go through the first one today on our call, but hopefully that gets your gears turning on how you could potentially leverage landing pages for your brand. And now we'll just hop into passing it over to Nick, and he will showcase how to build a landing page in the Listrak app.
Thanks, Ali, for that introduction. So I'm going to walk through landing pages in the Listrak app. The first thing I wanted to highlight is where you can locate landing pages. So in the main navigation, you can come to content and web content. From this page, you'll be able to get to a number of things, but primarily today we're talking about landing pages. So to create new, you'll be able to find landing pages here under new web content. For today's webinar, we're going to use an existing page. So we're going to go in and actually edit one we've already started here. Once you've opened a landing page, you'll notice a three-step process. It's design, configuration, and review. This first stage of design allows you to actually edit the content and open the editor itself. So you'll be able to do a quick preview here of what this page looks like. You can also alternatively change the template. So if you want to switch to an alternative template, by doing so, it will reset a lot of the creative. So be aware it will give you a warning box as well. But for today, we're going to go into the edit design. This is going to open our editor where you can have full drag and drop customizations for building out your page. This means that all of the different content types are selectable tiles that you can easily drag in to the page and then click on to alter settings. So in this case, having text settings. So a number of configurations here for fonts and colors, sizing, spacing. As we get into the design of the page, a couple things. So when I'm looking at this, I think this logo looks entirely too small. So a lot of these adjustments are really easy. So changing things like size. You can also go in and say if you want to make adjustments to the image, you can say apply effects. And so this is a great way to do things like resizing or even cropping or applying additional elements. A lot of people predominantly are going to use landing pages beyond just informational, but also for acquisition strategies. So as Ali pointed out, today we're going to talk about how do we get email and SMS collection inside of a page. So we already have a form on this page right now, so we can go into the edit form settings. So we already see that existing email field. And so we want to add a new field for phone number. So adding a second identifier to the form itself. And we're going to quickly map that to the subscription campaign. What this is doing is allowing that SMS number to map to the campaign that allows that opt-in flow process. So if you're using SMS, what does that multi-step opt-in look like in the SMS messages? Additionally, we'll add a couple other fields. So we want to add in first name as an example, and then also look for perhaps a source field. So we'll use pop-up as a source. So this pop-up field is going to be a checkbox, and we're going to check it by default and actually hide this. And what we're doing here is actually populating a profile field on submission. But in this case, the user or the visitor on the website and the landing page will not see this field, but it allows us to be able to map a submission to something more specific. So you could use this field as a representation of a specific promotional page. All the fields available to add into the form mappings come from all of the standard and profile fields associated to the list and contacts. So anything you add for a profile field will be accessible in here as well. We'll go on to next. So the second step here is about form actions. So on submission of the form, you can have a specific URL. For our demo, it's just going to be listrak.com. But as Ali pointed out, this would probably be some other potential landing page for confirmation or a secondary step of a promotional, or it's pointing to somewhere else on your actual website. This would be a place where you'd want to add in those additional parameters for like GA tags, for instance, if you want to have analytics tracking. On email, if you want to have override for email unsubscribe, that setting is available here as well. So we're going to apply those settings and you'll see the form is now updated. Obviously, we probably want to kind of mix this up. So you have the ability to come over and actually change positioning as well. So if you want to have first name first, email address, and phone number. A couple other things to highlight here is that this is previewing and editing in a desktop view. Alternatively, you can preview this from a mobile experience as well. Something to note is that designing in mobile and desktop can be unique. So something may look a little bit large or out of place on mobile. So what you can do in this state is actually come up and choose the visibility on, so that you can see which items are showing and not showing for mobile. So for instance, I brought in this spacer earlier, and if I want to choose to hide this on mobile, it will disappear. So that on mobile, it compresses the layout. Alternatively, I may want to maybe reduce the logo size on mobile or potentially even change the font size to be smaller so that's more condensed. So these are all things you can do that are desktop versus mobile styling and just makes it easier for the user experience itself when hosting these landing pages. From here, I'm going to hit apply and update the creative. You'll see that updated preview now with the new form fields and the styling changes. Step two is the configuration. So in here is where you can actually set the additional text you want onto the generated URL string. So this will go into the final generated URL that we generate. And the last step is a review. So this is where you can see some of the settings you've chose, as well as if you've added an SMS field for collection, a confirmation that you are using the compliance language. So you'll want to select that and ensure you are using that SMS disclaimer properly, which means to use it above the SMS collection field and that you're linking to your appropriate things like privacy policy. Last step here is to activate. So as soon as you complete the activation, you'll get that green notification the publish has completed, and it'll take you back to the web content screen. So you'll see here that the landing page is now listed in an active status. All active pages underneath the actions menu will now have two new settings. One is a view live link, and the other is share content. Share content is going to give you the URL that you can actually view the page at, so you can easily click to copy that. It'll also give you the embed code, so you can easily grab that code snippet and embed that into your website. The action for view live link will immediately open a new tab and launch the landing page and actually show it to you in the browser. So from here, you can do your full testing, make sure everything looks correct. You can submit the forms and validate that it's actually published and sending contacts into your contact pool, and should be good to go. Now we just walked through editing an existing page, but I wanted to circle back around to creating a new landing page experience as well. So if you go to new web content and then actually select a landing page, you will be presented with a few templated options. So we have some representations here for email sign up, SMS, as well as informational, or you can start from scratch, which gives you a completely blank canvas to build off of. I'm going to select informational here so we can review a few of the components inside of the editor in more detail. So a couple things to note structurally within landing pages is that you have most of it based off of concepts of rows. So inside of the rows side panel, you can choose different variations of rows for sizes. You can also select a row from within the editor itself. So this is an existing row. There is a number of settings like background colors. You can choose to add a background image, even a background video, a number of different settings. I think the most important thing to note here is layout structure. So this is an example of a single column inside of a row, but you can add additional columns. And so every time you add new, it's going to add a new column in. These are all adjustable, so you can adjust the sizing and spacing, and then choose and select each column to adjust column settings. So if you want to have, say for instance, one that is a different color background versus another, or you want to have different padding or borders around columns, this is how you access that. If you're not happy with a row or a column within a row, you can also choose to delete it and remove those as well. And that applies to all of the structures. These on the side basically are shortcuts to give you kind of ideal layouts. So if you're already thinking about certain layouts that you want to approach, these are easier to get started with. Additionally, inside of the content steps themselves, there is three different types of text. So there's title, paragraph, and list. They all have a little bit of a unique function, obviously, to what their names are. Paragraph is a more robust inside of the text editing itself. So if you want to do more styling, you want to put like a non-breaking space, you can put emoticons, lots of different elements with inside of the content itself, beyond just some of the broader block styling that's listed in the left side panel. The header is going to be a similar like title block, but a few less styling options because you're doing pretty much a larger and typical H1 or so headers. If you have custom style sheets, you could apply them from the different title types as well. The image block, as represented as one that's already here, gives you a lot of options for sizing, full width on mobile, auto width, lots of spacing and alignment purposes, as well as allowing you to go in and choose an image from a library. If you're already housing images somewhere else externally, you can just link to it from the URL as well. It's also important to include things like alt text in any of the things you do to ensure ADA compliance, so keep note of that. Additional kind of components that may be of use is things like tables, for instance. If you're doing something that's showing a grid of information, this can be very beneficial. It's pretty easy to add additional columns, rows, stylings to the headers as well as the content itself. So lots of capabilities here in terms of styling preferences, if you want to use that for displaying content uniquely. The last one I'll highlight is social here. So you can bring in a social element. This gives you the ability to add in multiple different icons. You can expand this into the details. So if you want to change the alt text or the URL, so if you have a specific page you're linking to, and also the type of page. So if you're wanting to overwrite the page or open a new tab in the browser, that would be used here as well. There are some icon collections. So if you have specific styling groups, you can grab them from here as well for consistency. As far as the palette goes, most of these items are all draggable. So if you want to change where the placement goes, deleting an element is easy. If you're wanting to, say, duplicate an element, it's simply going to the duplicate function. So all of these are pretty simple to interact with. If you want to see more or read more about the settings in here, we do have help articles as well. So they dive a little more deeper into some of the detailed functionality, especially around building forms. And that's all we're going to cover today in today's demo. And I'll pass it back to Ali.
Thanks for joining us today. We hope this sparks some ideas on how you can use our landing page editor for your specific business, and we can't wait to see what you build. Hope everyone has a good day.